This week on Off the Air, Jack Armstrong.
All right, without further ado, joined by the one and only Jack Armstrong. Jack, thanks so much for taking the time. How's it going?
Doing great, Jackson. Good morning. And Alex and Jimmy, great to join you guys, and happy to be here. And I love Fordham, and so happy to chat with you guys for a few minutes.
Really happy to have you. And Jack, obviously kind of a crazy time as we get ready to go back into the NBA bubble, but the last 3 or 4 months have obviously not been optimal, to say the least. What is COVID-19? How has it affected your life, and how has it affected you during quarantine?
Well, it's been a challenge, I think, for everybody, and it's obviously such a sad thing. So many people have been affected by it. So our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone affected by it, as well as the incredible people working on the front lines and in the hospitals, and all the healthcare workers and people that are just doing their part. So that, and then you combine that with the unfortunate situation, the social injustice issues as well. And, so you combine that, and there's a lot of stress on people in our society today. And, so let's hope and pray that things settle down, and we find, a cure and a vaccine for the virus, and we find an area where people can communicate and respect each other, and make progress on those areas right now that, in terms of our society, that need tremendous improvement.
Jack, staying on that theme, let me ask you, because you're an analyst for the Toronto Raptors, and once again this year they're in the thick of things, both in the Eastern Conference and at the NBA bubble in Orlando. After 4+ months here, how happy are you to have the NBA back and have games to broadcast?
No, I'm really excited about it. I think our concept, unlike baseball, I think has a better chance to succeed. Will it? Your guess is as good as mine. I think the NBA has kind of thought everything through, and I think they're at a point where I think they've tried to dot every I and cross every T, but there's no guarantees. And you look at MLS and the NHL, golf, different sports, they all have different approaches, but nonetheless, there are going to be challenges in every single approach. But that's what leadership is. That's what adaptability and flexibility is when a crisis hits, the ability to pivot quickly and make good decisions on your feet. It's very easy to be a peacetime general. It's very difficult to be a wartime general. When it's game on, a lot of times these decisions are rapid fire. So when you're a commissioner, and when you're a leader of an owner, a leader of a team, or head of the players union, or whatever the case may be in any of these sports, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. So I'm excited sports is back. I'm a huge sports fan, not just basketball. So to me, I'm hopeful that part of it can maybe, for a few minutes a day, maybe bring a smile to somebody's face, take their mind off of the challenges that all of us in different ways are going through. And I think sports does serve a great role in our society.
Jack, before we really get into the NBA and your job with the Raptors now, let's go back to your time at Fordham and WFUV, class of '85 for you. What was FUV like back in the 1980s, so long ago?
Well, Jackson, as you know, I have my bachelor's in '85 from Fordham, and I have my master's in '88. And I was a basketball coach. I was an assistant coach. At the time, I was very young, a few years as an undergrad, and then I was a grad student. And my experience with WFUV was kind of on a different level, because I was coaching, but nonetheless, the guys that did the games were very, very good friends of mine. I mean, two guys that just right off the top of my head, Bob Papa, Jack Curry. Those are guys that, I traveled with. They used to cover the team. We'd go out together. I mean, we were buddies. And during my time there. So, and they would regularly have me on WFUV as a guest, talking basketball, and people would call in, and obviously we'd get some prank calls from campus and all that. But I thought I was just so blown away by the talent that the folks at WFUV had. It was just, to me, I was so impressed. I was like, man, these guys have a future. And not only that, but the folks that wrote for the Ram, the school newspaper, the talent level, the level of passion for not only sport but issues on campus in general. So, you guys were on campus when I spoke in February, and one of the things I mentioned was the fact that I have my master's in communications from Fordham, and people go, wow, that's pretty cool. And all I ever wanted to be was a basketball coach, and I got my master's in communications because it fit our practice schedule. I mean, so I never in a million years thought that I would be doing this. I thought I'd still be walking up and down the sidelines, going crazy at some place somewhere in North America, or maybe overseas, whatever. That's what I envisioned myself doing my entire life. Here I am in my second act now, my second career in broadcasting. But WFUV, my experience at Fordham, the people I had the good fortune to meet, a Mike Breen, a Michael Kay. I mean, there's just so many different talented people that I had the good fortune to come across in my time, have all made a positive impact on me. And then when it was time to pivot from one career to the other, thankfully, each one of those guys was nice enough to help me get started in a new career in their own way.
Jack, let's rewind maybe even further than your time at Fordham. You are a Fordham alum, and when you decided to come to Fordham, what were the main factors in that? I read that your parents actually met in the Bronx. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, my parents are from Ireland. They're immigrants, so I'm first generation. My parents were married in the Bronx, and then we grew up in Brooklyn. So my parents met in the Bronx. My mom lived on the Grand Concourse, and she was a nanny for a family in Connecticut. I think it was New Canaan or Greenwich, Connecticut. And then on the weekends, she would come back to the Bronx and stay with her family. And my dad was over from Ireland as well. So they didn't know each other in Ireland. They met in the Bronx. And then we settled in Brooklyn. So to me, I always felt, that Fordham was one of those amazing schools as an inner city kid that went to Catholic grade school, St. Brendan's, and Catholic high school, Nazareth High School in Brooklyn. A place like Fordham was an amazing place to aspire to. That if you could ever get a chance to have an opportunity to go there. And I had a few people in my neighborhood in Brooklyn that had gone there. And thankfully, they were these guys, this guy Alagello, who was a Fordham graduate, he used to always say to me, he goes, you'd be great at Fordham. This, it fits you and you fit it. And I'm glad my guidance counselor in high school and a few people, and I had an opportunity to visit there, both the Lincoln Center and the Rose Hill campus. And to me, I was like, I'm a New Yorker. I wanted to stay in New York. And it was just an amazing fit.
Jack, obviously you grew up wanting to be a coach when you ended up at Fordham, and that was always your aspiration. So when did the transition to broadcast really pivot? Was that after your time at Niagara? And what really caused you to want to get back into broadcasting?
Well, Jackson, people always ask, how'd you get into broadcasting? Well, I got fired as a coach. I mean, that's basically, that's what happened. The reality is, it's I say it's the greatest scam going. It's sports version of white collar crime. We put all these unemployed coaches and, a quarterback or whatever. It's, at some point in time, there's somebody that tells an athlete, hey man, you're done. You got to pack your bags and hit the road. You don't have it anymore. And it's the same thing with a coach. Hey man, ain't happening. You look at my career record. I was 100 and 154 at Niagara. That doesn't really lead to long-term security. So I had a year left on my contract at Niagara. And I just said to myself, you know what? I'm burnt out. I'm physically, emotionally, in every way, shape, or form, burnt out, exhausted. I need a year away from this to recharge my batteries. So I had a lot of people tell me while I was coaching, I had my own TV show, my own radio show when I was a coach at Niagara. Your classic, you see these shows all the time, the Nick Saban show or whatever. And it was your classic coaches show. But I had a lot of people say to me, hey, you're really good at that stuff. And when you meet with the media, TV, print, radio, whatever, you're very comfortable. You'd be really good at that. It was probably code word for saying, hey, man, you're a lousy coach. You should try this for a living. But that's what I ended up doing. I said, I'm going to give it a shot for 1 year. And, go back to my Fordham connections, guys I reached out to, Mike Breen, Michael Kay, Bob Papa. One of the first jobs I got hired was at Madison Square Garden Network and doing, college basketball for them. That was a great opportunity. I got hired to do college basketball with Empire Sports Network in Western New York, ESPN Regional, Atlantic 10 Network, a guy named Bob Stites, who was an assistant athletic director at Fordham at the time, was now at the Atlantic 10. So a lot of Fordham connections, and then the Raptors had an opening at the same time for a radio analyst position. And I was very fortunate enough to have a lot of amazing people like the guys I mentioned, as well as a lot of my coaching friends, guys like Tom Penders and Nick McCarchick, who I was an assistant for at Fordham, and a lot of other folks from my experience call on my behalf to the Raptors and say, this guy might have been a lousy coach, but he might end up being a decent broadcaster. And then one thing led to another, and I got started. And honestly, after a year or two of it, I was like, why the heck would I ever want to go back to coaching? This is a lot more fun. I actually have a smile on my face. It connects me with the joy of the sport. And I love the sport. I can't thank the sport enough for everything I've had in my life. Nonetheless, it's hard. It's a grind when you're coaching. It's stressful. And to me, so I feel like I've found a really good second act in life, and I've enjoyed it, and I hope to do it as long as they'd like to have me.
Jack, to the point of what you've just been talking about, you had a great line, and I want to read it. You were talking about when you went from the sidelines of being a coach to being a broadcaster, you said that you had gone from idiot to expert, and those are your words, and I love that line, and I'm saving it for use in my life. But would you say that going from the sidelines to broadcasting, you were talking about how stressful coaching is, would you say it was kind of an easy transition for you, given how good you had been with the media as a coach and having your own show and the like?
It was a lot of work. If you want to be really good at it, it's a lot of work. We have a lot of guys that are, I would call on lifetime scholarship, that they were a great player. And suddenly these networks will automatically just hire them and put them on television or on radio. And quite frankly, a lot of them aren't any good. Some are terrific, but you got to work at it, and you got to learn your craft. I'll never forget Bill Raftery said to me, he said, Jack, spend a night in the truck. And it was a great lesson for me. He said, get in the control room, get in the truck, appreciate what the producer, the director, the board op, all those different people do. Because as you know, and you guys are in it, at some point in time, when that red light's on, we call it on television, the truck's on fire. We might be in Memphis on a Saturday night doing a game against the Grizzlies, and we've got the D crew that night, because the A, B, and C crew, they're all, it's the South, it might be late November, and they're all someplace doing SEC football, or they're doing NFL football. So now you've got people that don't have as much experience, and literally the truck's on fire. You're like, okay, we're out there tap dancing, and there's all sorts of technical issues. So you need to know the ins and outs. You got to respect the people you work with, the camera people, everybody. We're all in it together. We're a team. So as a former coach, I take pride in the fact that the people I work with, I have a respect and a sense of what they do. And I think it creates a good camaraderie as a team when we go on the air. And there's shared success, and there's also shared pain. But that was a great lesson that Raf taught me as a young analyst. And I think, so my point is, it was a great transition, and I felt comfortable doing it. But if you want to be good at it, you really got to work at it. And I look at a guy like UB Brown, who has helped me a lot in this transition. And UB, played at Niagara back in the 50s. And obviously, I got to know UB when I coached at Niagara. And, the guy's a Hall of Fame broadcaster as well as having had a great coaching career. But he has had 2 great careers. But when you think of UB Brown, you think of a guy that's big time prepared. The guy's 86 years old right now, and he's still doing games. And the guy brings it. And to me, if you want to really be good at it, you have to be curious. You have to be willing to ask questions. You got to be willing to allow yourself to be critiqued. You have to really work at it. And I think in our profession right now, there are many that do just that. And then there are many that just get handed a job because of their previous resume that don't work at it. So to me, I have a high standard for myself, and I try to work really hard at it.
Jack, you mentioned that Bob Papa and Jack Curry were 2 of the guys at FUV that you spent a lot of time with in college. When you made the transition from coaching to broadcasting, was there anyone in particular at FUV that specifically really helped you make that transition? And was there a piece of advice that you remember possibly from one of those guys?
Well, every one of them. I mean, you mentioned 2 of them. Definitely a guy like Mike Green, Michael Kay, a dear friend of mine, Joe Favorito. And Joe is in the PR business, but Joe was with us with the Fordham basketball program, and he's, if you guys haven't had an opportunity to meet Joe Favorito, he's a remarkable guy. And to me, each one of them in their own way, challenged me to really work at the craft. I think these guys, I look at a guy like Jack Curry, who has made the transition from being an incredible writer at the New York Times and now is on television for the Yes Network for the Yankees. He's had 2 careers, one as an established baseball writer and now as a talking head, and he's really good at both. But the guy's paid his dues and done his research, and he's really good at what he does. So I can recall doing a demo tape before I got hired by the Raptors and sending it to Mike Green, and Mike watching it for me, and then giving me tips on different things in terms of coming in and out of commercial breaks and changing your voice level and how you describe certain things. And but so not only was it former coaching friends that made the transition into being a broadcaster as an analyst, but guys that are play-by-play guys that are hosts. And to me, I think you want people, and I'm not sure if I said it when we met in February, but I'm a big believer in this, and I see this now in broadcasting. UB Brown has a great line about it. They say, I don't think people critique enough. I don't think we seek out enough feedback on our work. And UB has a great line, and that's how it goes in our business. Great job, great job, great job, you're fired. Because you think you're great on TV because all your friends are going, yeah, you're really good, you're really good. But you got to keep getting better. You got to know when maybe you've lost a little movement on your fastball, or you're not locating your pitches properly, whatever. You got to, there's timing. There's so many things. I call it meeting the moment. Like I did Game 6 of the NBA Finals last year, and the Raptors won a title. That's the most watched basketball game in the history of Canadian television. That was like a gold medal Olympic game or, World Cup final. The ratings were off the charts. You walk into that game that night, you better meet the moment. And a lot of it just comes down to the fact that over the course of your career, who are your mentors? Are you willing to take criticism? Are you willing to handle the praise as well in a smart way? Because the two biggest imposters are success and failure, right? And you got to be able to stay level, and you can't get a big head, and you can't hang your head, And so to me, I think it's about daily preparation, putting the time in, and really respecting your craft as a broadcaster. And I've learned that from my friends at Fordham that have had great careers, and it started at WFUV for them. And I've learned it from many other people in my connections in basketball that have taught me great lessons.
Jack, you were talking about being on the call for the NBA Finals last year. The Raptors get their first championship, and so many memorable moments throughout that run, the Kawhi shot, the run through the playoffs. You talked about meeting the moment, but what was it like for that playoff run to be a part of the Raptors broadcasting team?
Oh, it's a remarkable experience. It's kind of surreal. I honestly didn't watch Game 6 until late October. Like literally, my off season was so busy. I mean, like it's insane, which is great. It's a positive problem. But I literally had the Larry O'Brien trophy at my house, and we had a trophy party, just like the Stanley Cup. And I had, there were probably 300 people at my house. It was crazy. And in the background, I had Game 6 of the finals on. And we were already in season the following year. I think we had a game in Toronto on a Monday night. We had a game in Toronto on a Wednesday night. And I brought the trophy home. I'll never forget going through U.S. Customs. And I said, I got to, anything to declare. I said, well, yeah, by the way, I have the Larry O'Brien trophy in my trunk. So the customs guys, like, everybody came out. They were going crazy. This is unbelievable. Can I take a picture? Sure, go ahead. But it was amazing. There's a lot of people that I have such a great friendship with in the community I live in now in Western New York. And then I brought the trophy back the next day. But my point is, the game was on that night, a tape of it. And finally, after we cleaned the house up, I stayed up late, had a glass of wine, and actually sat down and watched the game. And like, it brought back so many memories. I had to pinch myself. I'm like, we actually did win the championship. This is amazing. I've been out running at times in Toronto, and I've run pretty much every day. And you'll run by somebody that has a T-shirt that says Toronto Raptors NBA Finals, and you're like, can I pinch myself? Did that really happen? So it's kind of like at times an out-of-body experience. What do they say? The joy is in the journey. When you're in the midst of it, you're so busy. People are pulling you in 85 different directions. There are so many demands on your time. And that's why I have such respect for, like, you look at the Warriors in their great run. You look at the Patriots over the years. You look at even a guy like LeBron James, how he handles all this. It's a lot of work. And being able to keep your head amidst all of it is really important. But it was just an amazing experience, one that I'll never forget. And who knows? We'll see. I think the Raptors have a heck of a team right now. And I think we'll be in the hunt again.
Jack, before we wrap up, like you mentioned, obviously difficult circumstances this year, the bubble beginning this weekend, the Raptors beginning their title defense, and probably one of the more surprised teams in the NBA this year without Kawhi and Pascal Siakam stepping up, Nick Nurse doing a terrific job in year 2. What do you make of the Raptors' title hopes this year? Obviously a lot to overcome in terms of Boston and Milwaukee, but what do you make of the Raptors' title defense hopes this year?
Well, Jackson, this will be year 7 of the Raptors being in the playoffs. If they win 4 games in the bubble, in the play-in games, it'll be 5 years in a row with 50 wins or more. They have an NBA title. They've been to the Eastern Finals twice. They have quite a resume. When you look at the Raptors in the last, I think it's 4 years, 5 years, they have the best record in the NBA, the best. And yet you have a lot of analysts who don't do their homework, who actually don't watch the games. They watch the highlights. And they continue to tell you about teams that are a lot of hype and sizzle, but on a daily basis don't get it done. So to me, I understand and respect the fact that Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green departed, and those guys did an amazing job for the Raptors. It's going to be difficult, but it's going to be difficult for any team to win it. But when I look at the Raptors, and they have the 3rd best record in the NBA right now, and they were crushed with injuries. When you look at the top 5 teams in the NBA in terms of injuries, the other 4 aren't even currently in the playoffs. They were decimated with injuries, and yet they had an incredible season. And here's the thing that's interesting as well. They have the exact same record at home as they do on the road. So I don't know if it was Aristotle or Socrates, some smart guy said, excellence is a habit, not an act. I think they have good habits. And I think they're a little different. There are times that people get bored with a team that makes it every year. I thought the Atlanta Hawks, Mike Woodson, Mike Budenholzer, those guys did a really good job, and they had some really good teams for a long period of time, but they couldn't get over the hump. The Raptors, in some ways, year 7 in the playoffs, sometimes people just get fatigued and want something new or different. And but nonetheless, they have accomplished. They've been to the finals. They've won it. So to not give them their just due, I think is maybe a little bit shaky, because I do feel confident that if they play the Celtics or the Bucks or whoever it may be, that they'll be right in there swinging in the center of the ring with a chance to win. Am I guaranteeing it? I don't know what's going to happen. None of us do. But nonetheless, I think they're a contending team. I think they're a team that definitely should be taken serious. And if they're fully healthy, I think they're tough to beat. And they have not been healthy. And nonetheless, here they are where they are. So I would say don't sleep on it.
The one and only Jack Armstrong giving us terrific insight on his time at Fordham and so much more. Jack, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today. All the best going forward, and best of luck to you and the Raptors in the bubble this year.
My pleasure, Jackson. And Jimmy, thank you so much for having me. And Alex, thanks for doing all the hard work. What is he, the guy? He's spinning the dials. He's the tech guy, right?
Sure is.
All right. Well, thank you, guys, for having me. And it's an honor and privilege to be on with you today. And anytime you want me to come back on, I'm always honored and privileged to do it. And in closing, go Rams.